Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum jamian wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I gave a lot of thought to how I should structure my MC speech for this great personality for whose birthday we are commemorating today. His struggle started long before I was born, and he was martyred when I was very young. I did not have the chance to see him in person, nor did I have the opportunity to listen to him in a live situation. So I reached out to some of the brothers within the GT area, and thanks to them I managed to gather some snippets from his day-to-day life, and hopefully I'll be sharing with you as we move on today. It is my firm belief that in order to gauge the greatness of a person, you don't need to only see how they behave in public, because in public we all wear some kind of a mask. It is rather the small things, of a person's life that you need to assess. It's how they deal with their families, it's how they deal with their neighbors, those kinds of things that really tell you the grandeur of a personalities, of a person, how great that person is. So inshallah, I'll be sharing with you some of those snippets, inshallah, as we move on, and so we can all seek inspiration from this great person. Just a couple of things that I want to highlight before we move on to our next segment. So Shaheed Quaid had a great respect. He had a personality that he used to respect a lot his fellows. Interestingly, he used to respect those who loved him and even those who hated him. So somebody told him, was present in this gathering, he said that he had the habit of greeting people. Every time somebody would come and see him, come and meet him, he would stand up to greet them. Now this was irrespective of who the person was, if the person was a young person or an older person or someone of a high stature or not. So this one time, and of course there was different type of people who used to come and meet him. So this one time, the student scholar came to see him, and Shaheed Quaid, in his usual fashion, stood up and greeted him. Now, this used to have an impact on people sitting around you, because when he would stand up, then naturally everybody else would stand up and greet them as well. So in this particular situation, when this young person came to see him, he stood up and greeted him. However, his secretary, who used to be pretty much on his side all the time, he did not stand up. When the meeting finished, Shaheed Quaid, went to the secretary and he asked him why he did not stand up to greet him. And as something as small as that, the secretary said that he just did not feel the need for it because he was some young student scholar, and he did not feel the need for it. Shaheed Quaid did not like this action, and he, specifically, I would not use the word scolded, but rather he, he insisted on the secretary to make sure that this kind of a mistake is not repeated in the future. A great thing not for us as individuals to follow, but of course for our ulamas as well, inshallah. Another thing that I found very interesting, again as a small token of, inshallah, as a small hadiah for us coming here. It was definitely hadiah for me. It was his braveness and his courage as a child. So this one time, he was, in the mountainous area. It's a custom in the villages. It's a custom that kids would, get up on trees and they would be eating fruits and that kind of a thing, So there was this one time, he was on a tree and he was eating, mulberries. Mulberries in Urdu we call them shahtoot. So he was on a tree and he was eating the shahtoot, and what happened was that he fell and he fractured his hand. And he had to be taken to the hospital, and he had to get some plaster done. And after a few weeks, when the plaster came off, he went back to that same tree, got up on that same tree, and was doing the exact same action that he was doing earlier, that is eating shahtoot. So his brother, he asked him, you're on that same tree doing the exact same thing, you're going to get hurt again. And he said, the reason I'm on this tree is so that the tree may not think that I'm afraid of him. So that shows, that braveness, that courage. A very small thing again, that shows how the mind of a great person works. Just a couple more things. Besides his political activity, for which we all obviously know him, he was also a simple man. Shaheed Quaid was a simple man of great moral values. So again, a first-hand narration that I came across was that there was this one time that Shaheed went to some brother's house for a gathering. There was a long session, quite possibly an overnighter. And of course, there was a lot of brothers present. So and every time when somebody went for a washroom break, when they came back, they showed their irritation to the fact that the washroom was extremely dirty. I'm sure all of us can relate to it, maybe to a certain extent, that how such kind of a whisper would start occurring, especially in a gathering at a brother's place. So what happened was that after some time, then Shaheed Quaid went to the washroom, and he took a very long time in coming back to the gathering. The person who went after him realized that the washroom was pitch clean, and obviously Shaheed Quaid had done that in that time. So you see the kind of sensitivity, to a problem such small and such low, you can say, that we would so to be. Another thing that, again, this was one of his early struggles of his life, especially when he became a Quaid and he became the leader, and he started going around talking to people, trying to bring to them the message of Imam Khomeini and bring to them the importance of Tehreek and all that. He himself says in one of his books that for the first few years, he just had to spend time in Pakistan trying to tell the people of Pakistan that he's also a Shia, because a lot of mosques, a lot of Imam Bargahs, a lot of masajids, they would refuse to let him enter their mosques. They would refuse to and forget, there were mosques that would not allow him to even pray at the mosque, forget reciting a majlis or anything like that. So, and there was a lot of propaganda, around him and his followers, saying that, well, these people are against saying Ya Ali Madad, they're against doing Matam, they're against doing Azadari. One of the common, slogans was that, well, these guys are the Wahhabis of the Shias. So there was this one time, that he came to Karachi, and he was going to, recite, or they had planned to recite a lecture or do a majlis at the famous Rizvi Imam Bargah. I'm sure whoever is from Karachi knows the strategic importance, so to speak, of the Rizvi Imam Bargah. So when they got to the Imam Bargah or the mosque, the door of the mosque was shut. And some of the youth that were with him, of course, being, jazbati as they are, or more emotional, wanted to break the locks and get in. So Shaheed told them, well, there's no need to do that. We can have the majlis right outside the main gate of the Rizvi Imam Bargah. And for those who are from Karachi, they know that Rizvi Imam Bargah is located on a busy street. It used to be back in the day. Now, of course, it's all cordoned off. But anyway, so they decided to do the majlis right there and then. And in that particular majlis, and again, this is first-hand account from people who are present there, who have spoken to me and have given me this information. They said that one of the things that Shaheed brought up was that people accuse us of being against Azadari and blame us with such propaganda, etc. So we tell our brothers, and he pointed out this particular example, Shaheed said, that we tell our brothers that the area from which we belong, that is the area of Parachanar, mothers do Azadari in a very unique way. And it's beautiful as it is. He said that when the time for Masaib comes, when the time for the Maqtal of Imam Hussain comes, mothers make sure that they keep us in their laps. So when they're crying, their tears fall on the faces of the children. And this is the laps that we have grown up with. So, and he said that, and hence Azadari is in our soul and in our blood. The love of Baba Abdullah is in our soul and in our blood. So we tell our brothers that we are not against Azadari. People tell me or told me that after this majlis was over, the trustee of the Imam Bargah, who was listening from the other side of the door, he came to Shaheed and he apologized to him, and he apologized to him for all the propaganda that was against him. So, this is just amazing, mind-blowing for somebody like me to come up with something like this. In the end, just a couple of things, before I invite, our next speaker, Shaheed, we know from, and Mansoor Bhai spoke about this as well, and we have seen from one of the clips that we heard that Shaheed had a special attachment to Imam Khomeini, and his thoughts and his message, they were the guiding stones of what he did until he was martyred. I just want to give you a little bit more detail on how he was introduced to Imam Khomeini and where it kind of went from. So his affection started, and his introduction rather to Imam Khomeini started in the late 1960s when he was studying at the Hausa in Najaf. Imam Khomeini was also in exile in Najaf at that time. Those are the days of Saddam. And first-hand accounts tell us that during those days, people don't, and of course Imam Khomeini had similar propaganda against him, and people would not go and pray behind him, A, either because of Imam's beliefs, and B, because of the, the pressure from Saddam and his intelligence agencies. And Imam used to pray, lead prayers at the Madrasa Ayatollah Burjadi in Najaf. So Shaheed Quaid, however, was the only Pakistani who used to attend this Jamaat Salah on a regular basis, okay? And, despite all the pressure that Imam was under, he continued this practice. And as a result, and eventually when Shaheed Quaid was martyred, Imam Khomeini wrote a letter to the people of Pakistan, of which the summary was given by Mansoor Bhai, but I just felt the need to read it out, the whole thing. It's just take a few seconds. So on the death of, before the Chelum of Shaheed Arif, the letter that Imam Khomeini wrote reads this way. Hujjatul Islam Sayyid Arif Hussaini, the loyalist and lover of Islam and its revolution, the defender of the oppressed and the deprived, son of Sayyid al-Shuhada Aba Abdullah al-Hussain. For those mujahideen who understand the core problems of an Islamic state and who promise to give their blood with other oppressed and impoverished people, they should understand that this is just the beginning of the game, because it requires a long struggle to fight against the tyrants. We should think deeply by putting the example of martyr Sayyid Arif in front of us. There is no greater achievement for a muttaqi than to leave his abode with wounds that are medals on his chest and his face covered in blood, in the struggle for justice and in the highest stage of taqwa. He inspired thousands of other thirsty people to drink this beverage of light. Pakistan's blessed people are from a pro-revolution nation. They aspire to live according to Islamic rulings with which we have an ancient, deep, and faithful relationship. It is imperative for them to keep martyr Sayyid Arif's thoughts alive and to pass his message on. Nonetheless, the road to fight against American Islam is very difficult and puzzling. Therefore, it is necessary that all possible factors should be made clear for the impoverished Muslim masses. If this work would have been done through Islamic schools, then there is a high possibility that he, i.e. Shaheed Arif Hussaini, would be living amongst us today. So now it is necessary for us to fight against the Western and Eastern tyrants with all courage and understanding. I have lost my dear son today.